So if you've been watching this channel for a minute now, you know I'm a big fan of Rhamondre Stevenson. And, if you listen to my podcast where I talked about running backs, I believe I had him as my running back 3 or 4. I'm really high on him. I think he's really good. And you'll see why. I think that he's a unique back, which I think works well in this New England system. And he's a guy who can play. I know you look at his size, and he looks like a big linebacker, despite the fact that he's a running back. So that's what people say are like, honestly, he's a big edge rusher. That's just, he weighs like 260 pounds. So I get it. But apparently he's lost weight, and I don't even think he has to, because he's good enough regardless at his weight. Big fan of him. Let's get into the film study. So we'll start off with this play. It's going to be an outside run to the offense's left. That's the way it's working. So they have their right guard and right tackle who are going to pull all the way around to block defensive players. But one thing you may have noticed is how I have 2 of them going over to block the same player. Well, I have 2 players blocking the same player. I have the right guard is pulling over to block a linebacker, but it looks like either that's a wide receiver or a tight end. Looks like a tight end is also trying to block that player. It's hard to tell if that was just a mistake pre-snap or if there was just a decision made by the guard to run over and block him or something. I don't know. It's hard to say exactly what went wrong and whose fault it was, but still, that is something that's interesting because watch what happens. Right when this play starts, despite the fact that, there is a player who's kind of staying too far deep, which should mean that this is a good situation for Oklahoma. You now have the defensive player who I've circled in that black circle is a little bit closer in. He can try and make a tackle on Stevenson. And one of the things that I talk about is I do sometimes worry about, talking about how a guy can make players miss, because just, it's a bit concerning for me just in the sense that if you can make guys miss in college and you rely on it, does that mean you'll be able to make guys miss in the NFL? Because sometimes you can't. But still, watch this move. Watch how he cuts very well, and that's stiff arm, which, that's a good move. Like, I don't know if it'll work in the NFL, but it might. And, honestly, even if you're not impressed by the stiff arm, I think you should be at least impressed by his sort of east-west movement, despite the fact that, yeah, he is built like a refrigerator, but you know what? He can move pretty well. Like, this play will be a great example of that. It's going to be a run to the offense's right. But again, I'm less concerned about really what's going to happen, like pre-snap or anything like that. Just watch what happens. So Stevenson takes the ball, takes the handoff, and runs very slowly here to get, not as in he is slow, but just is very slow in getting to the line. He lets his offensive lineman good up to block. There's kind of a lot of chaos. And you know what? Hey, that worked out. Good decision by him. And now you have another defensive player who's running over to try and make the play, though. That's kind of the issue, is that the longer you wait, the more time other players can get into the play. And I have to be honest, I have no idea how Stevenson could see this guy right here. I mean, he must have incredible peripherals, because look where he's looking. He's looking basically straight ahead. You think you wouldn't be able to notice this. Maybe you'd notice it last second or something, but watch what he does. He pulls off a spin move right there, and he's able to, get the first down largely through then, putting his head down and running through contact. So he has footwork. He absolutely has footwork. Don't be fooled by the size and think he's just a 3rd down and 1 back. He can be a little shifty here too. And this next play is probably the biggest thing going in Stevenson's favor, is the fact that, yes, he's a bigger back, but he has solid footwork. His footwork, I'm going to bet that it didn't wow you. It didn't blow you away. It was pretty impressive for his size, but nothing that's like crazy. However, his acceleration is legit good. It's not just good for his size. It's just good acceleration. What's going to happen is that you have a tight end who's pulling over. He's going to kind of lead block in between 2 other players. You have a guard who's also pulling over. So the graphic I showed is a little bit confusing. It kind of looks like the tackle was the guy I'm talking about. The tackle is the one who's going to block the interior defensive lineman. You then have the left guard who pulls over. He blocks the edge. Tight end blocks in between them, and Stevenson just follows them. So that's how it works. So because of all of that, Stevenson is supposed to take the handoff and kind of wait a little bit, but then once he sees the gap open up, get through it quickly. So acceleration is going to be key here, and he's not going to have as much room to accelerate as typically he might like. But watch how he does, slowly takes the handoff, and then watch this just bang, just gets through that gap and just runs by everybody, gets into the end zone for a touchdown. That'll work, and that'll work in the NFL. It just will. It's really good acceleration, and that's what I care more about than a great 40 time. Great 40 time, that's good. I definitely value that to some degree, but you know what I care more? If you can just get to a top speed quickly, and Stevenson can. Okay, let's talk about the other stuff, because if you've watched some of my other videos about running backs, you know that one of the things I talk about with a running back is I want someone who can be a 3-down back. I don't care if you're just someone who can run the ball well. There are other guys who I have lower in my running back rankings who can, I would say, run the ball a little bit better than Stevenson. I think Stevenson's still very good, but I want a back who can do everything. I want a back who I don't have to put in the game only on select situations. I want someone who I can just say, okay, you're going in. Especially if you want 2 backs, you don't want to have to try and, figure out who's tired, who isn't, figure out who should go in, which situation. It can be really difficult, and a lot of times it's just easier to just have someone who can do all 3 things, because you never know. Maybe you want a running play, but then the situation calls for a passing play, and then you see a blitz. You need someone who can block, and if your back can't block, now you're in trouble. Having a back who can do anything is just key. So on this play, when there is a blitz and he has to block, he's going to do a good job. Where at first he's actually supposed to chip the edge rusher, so that's what he's going to do. But then he's going to pick up the blitzer. And watch this. Watch how he does pick it up and just completely takes that defender out of the play. I mean, he has no chance of getting into the play. That's just incredible blocking by Stevenson. He might be the best blocking halfback in this draft class. Najee Harris is really good too, but his blocking is up there. I mean, it's really good. Of course, I would say probably having, good size helps with that, but he's also a smart blocker. He picks up blitz as well, so there's a lot to like about Stevenson's blocking, which is something that I just value more than I think the average person does, which is probably why I'm higher on Stevenson than the average person is. And one final play. This is going to be a passing play because, 3 facets of the game, running with the football, blocking, and then pass catching. He can pass catch well as well, so watch what happens. Right when this play starts, Stevenson runs out, nothing too crazy. But what's interesting about it is that this is not going to be a great throw. So that's why this is a play that's worth showing. However, he makes a one-handed grab and turns his hips well enough that he's able to run forward and pick up more yards, which I actually care about more is the way he turned his hips like that. Yes, it's great that, he made a one-handed catch, but I'm not expecting him to be Odell Beckham Jr. out there. What I'm expecting him to do is be able to make a catch, turn his shoulders, and then run forward and pick up as many yards as possible around the corner, and he can do that. So I think he's someone that just because of the way he looks, he's going to fall, he falls a little bit in the draft class, doesn't get as much attention as maybe I think he should. But I think I care less about, how much do you look like a great halfback and more about how good of a halfback are you. And I think he's a really good halfback, and I think he'll surprise some people. But that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this move? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.